Welcome tonight to our fourth day of COP. So the what happens on the fourth day of Christmas? The bridesmaids, isn't it, or the milkmaids? Is it?
You're asking a foreigner. I haven't got the faintest idea. It's something about geese at one point, and yeah,
Really?
I'm not really that familiar with the tune. I know it, of course, but lyrics.
Calling birds, 4 calling birds. So here we are, 2
Oh,
calling
really?
birds, you and me at least. We
2 calling
hopefully
birds.
will have a few more people to join us tonight for
Yeah.
our water for massage segment. We'll see how that goes along.
Indeed.
And it's been an interesting day, I think, all around. And so in COP28, I think the information is now coming along and changing between the message of how we need to speed up to maybe some of the messages about what can we actually do maybe to restrict the use of oil, gas, and coal. Except, how do you think that's going? Have you been following the news there at all?
Very, very sparsely. I had an incredibly busy day. I was bogged down with various issues from pretty much early this morning till now. Hence, the voice is also taking a bit of a toll today. So I should try to stay as stum as humanly possible. But no, I've seen the odd headline come out from Dubai, and I think.
Okay.
And you know my view fairly well. I think these are all pre-orchestrated and more or less scheduled to come to give the usual buzz. And I'm sure there is a media spin doctor behind it all that has decided at what points in time he will send out the smoke signals to kind of keep people interested enough about what's going on. So,
Well, for tonight's show, then, what we have for you is none of that, because we are the antidote to COP28. And what we have for you is our usual comedy segment, Who Tipped Over the Tipping Point, the show that keeps you laughing sustainably. And that's going to be followed, hopefully, by people joining us for Water for Maasai. We'll see how that goes along. We have a clip on the sandwich generation, the challenges that faces us. It's not only the young people who sees the world today as being challenging, it's also those who are caught in the middle between looking after the elderly parents and those looking after teenage children. I myself am one of those. And then we're going to have, after that, the unsustainable truth. What do we think about the world's economics today? Richard is having a conversation with a former hedge fund manager, and that will prove to be an interesting thing. And of course, our music segment, I Want to Sing Tomorrow. And this time we feature Halisi Monray, one of the premier artists in Kenya at the moment, and we'll have some of his music to play. So what do you reckon we start with then? Should we start with the comedy?
Of course, we always start with a comedy.
Let's start with a good laugh.
The edge of all our seriousness, really.
Yes. maybe we'll play it again at the end just to take that edge off again. And just as a
we might have to.
For everybody. Yes. Okay. Right. Here we go.
And welcome to Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point. This is a comedy quiz show featuring various bits and aspects with the sole purpose of ensuring that you can keep on laughing sustainably. Of course, nothing else. So with me today, I obviously have the other half, Dr. David Coe, but he's not the interesting bit, because we have up in the cold depths of Scotland, we have Nico with us. And more importantly, we have Katie Critchlow with us. And from much sunnier part, we have Ian Kaplan with us. So, welcome. And the format here is a little bit loose, but we are supposed to score points based on various segments of the show. And we're going to start out looking at basically the most unsustainable products we could pick up. So I'm going to hand over to David, and he's going to send us off with the first product. And then we have a little bit of a reasoning around why we love this product so much and what we see as a future for it. So, David, off you go. You get the first hit.
And maybe I'd love to give a little bit more of an introduction of the various people. So, you know, myself and Richard, we've come from very much a hardcore investment background. So we understand about how you persuade people to buy things they don't need. That's basically our skill, our superpower there. Nico, actually, he's living up in Scotland, so he's way up in the north, but he comes from Zimbabwe, which is way down in the south. So he represents that union between what people call the global north and the global south. Now, how that ended up in Scotland, I don't know, but maybe he'll tell us. And Katie has an illustrious career within the sustainability and actually within the commercial area of actually making the businesses to be how we dream of businesses becoming. And so she has that experience and maybe some of the cynicism that can color just how we can look at the products and really understand what goes on behind the scene. So thank you very much for everybody. And now let's bring on some of these things. Who can say what's so special about this?
Is it a sustainable oil platform?
You're very close, very close.
Oh no.
Very, very close.
Is it one of those ships been hijacked by those guys? I'm not gonna name them in case I get cancelled. You know those guys that they always take the oil companies.
Those ones? We don't.
I love those ones. It's so explicit.
Yeah, it looks like it's been hijacked, and then they put in the corner like, let's check what you have. I don't know, David. I'm gonna leave that because I got a very bad memory of thinking.
Okay, so it is indeed an oil platform. It's an offshore oil platform. It's
I was going to say that.
It's just been changed. They just changed the name to Excalibur. Actually, it's a year ago now. They changed the name to Excalibur. Who can guess what the name was before that? I mean, just think about this, right?
No idea.
We would probably have had some far less exotic kind of cool name than Excalibur. Excalibur is a pretty cool name, let's be honest. It probably was called, CR3B/4 or something, because it's the fourth version and it goes a bit deeper or something. It probably had a really boring numerical /letter combination as its identifier before, and now it's called Excalibur.
Or was it a super greenwashy name? Like we used to, when I lived in Indonesia, there was a brand that did greener coal, and you're like, really? And they were like, they marketed it because it had like low sulfur or something stupid like that. So maybe this was called like the green oil platform because they had a recycling bin on it or something like that.
Is this one, David? I think this one is because I'm from the country where there's no ocean. So when I look at this, I see a tortoise. I'm like,
oh,
So maybe it was called the little turtle, and then they thought it was too ironic because it was
very, very close. Very, very close. Yes,
Oh.
Katie, you're well on your way there.
the dolphin, or
You're well on your way there. So I'm going to try and switch over the share. And there's a story. Okay, so I'm going to go on to this one along. I'm just going to share this tab and then see if you see that. So if you see the name, I'm going to make this bigger so you can see the name.
hummingbirds.
Yes.
Oh, I heard about this one.
I mean, it couldn't look more like a hummingbird, really, could it?
No.
Tiny, dainty little thing.
Beautiful, pretty colors. It just flies everywhere. So it used to be called the hummingbird, which is incredible. I mean, there's a story I heard about how the forest is on fire and the hummingbird is flying over them carrying little drops of water, and all the animals saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the little hummingbird is saying, "I'm doing my part." Just that little story along, and we all just do our little bit along that. So it used to be called the hummingbird, but then they decided to make it really green. Then they called it Excalibur, that sort of sword that comes along.
Wow.
And how have they made it green? It is an oil platform. It is there to produce oil.
they've
So how have they
probably
made
like
it?
reduced the amount of oil that they leak by like 4%, or done some recycling, or something equally rubbish.
Equally rubbish, the diminished leakage here. No, I suspect what they've done here is that they've started electrifying some of the operations.
Okay.
So they don't
It's an
use
offshore platform. How would they do that? Massive batteries? Do they have like gigantic boats towing batteries
I
up
think
there?
they're using battery instead of using a diesel generator. Perhaps for some of the activities they use battery powered tools or something like that, and that way they can label themselves as being much more green, because now you're no longer actually firing up the diesel to run some of the machines on the platform.
Yes. So what they have done is they have built a wind farm to power it.
Oh,
Sound.
a wind powered oil rig.
Without oil platform, you can make that without game.
That's a scam. That's a scam to me, man. You can't mix those two.
But and why then change the name? The Hummingbird would have fit perfectly among all those swishing blades.
Well, because now it doesn't have to sound cute and pretty. Now it can be this sword that cuts through.
Sorry, that wind-powered sword that cuts through the seabed.
Yes.
Giving us oil. Yeah. It is a cool name, though. You have to say, Excalibur is a cool name, irrespective of the product. You take note. It goes back to the pipe, right? Excalibur, that is gravitas. That is a product you can rely on. This is the real deal.
Yes, the Hummingbird is honest. Well, no, because it's like with this. Yeah. So, do we need it?
No.
The wind farm or the oil platform?
Whichever way you want. Do we need it? And what,
I think with anything that's any renewables anywhere, great. But the thing that riles me about the oil platforms doing a wind, or the oil company investment in wind or renewables or car charging, these tiny little extra bits they're doing and then talking about them. We've all seen it. We've all seen the spoofs now. Wind farms everywhere, all over their marketing, where really 95% of their business is just this big old oil platform. Just be honest about it. Don't expect kudos. So probably keep the wind farm, but not as a justification for this big old thing.
Okay, so get rid of this lump, Hummingbird or Excalibur. Keep the wind farm. and from Richard, it's you gotta keep it. You gotta keep the name. Otherwise,
you see, we still need some oil production, right? And would you rather fill up your car with something that's been extracted by Excalibur, or would you want to fill up your car with something that's been extracted by Hummingbird 2? I mean, I'm in the Excalibur camp, right?
For me, then it's get rid of your car, get rid of the platform, keep the wind farm. That way, you can call the wind Hummingbird. You can call the electricity, you get the Hummingbird. So, what about you, Nico?
For me, I think this thing is distracting animals every day. I mean, they can't sleep.
That's true.
It's just a horrible neighbor. And secondly, I'll keep the wind farm, because this time, as I said, I'm from the village. To me, if this thing turned up in my village, everybody would scream. We have no idea what the hell is this, Imagine in the village, even the elephant, it scares us. The elephants, they'll come to your field at night. There's to break this big animal duck, but you can't see the front. We call what's the name of that? What's the name of the ship?
Okay.
Yeah. I think the ship should go. For me, I'm worried about environmental destruction. Sorry, the destruction does with animals. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and the noise underneath the water, and I don't know about oil much because I'm one of those people from the country when the government comes to the election time, you buy electric bikes, but there's no electricity.
Yes.
So,
That's a good point. That's a good point. But they're disposable, right?
Yeah.
yeah. No, those e-bikes, they sound like vapes. Sorry, we'll come back maybe next week to that one.
Yeah, you just leave them littering around because there's no electricity. And actually, the thing with the e-bikes is you can't really paddle them if it's not connected up, or at least the ones I tried. So you don't really work that way. Maybe I need to get the really expensive one where you can. But anyway,
You have an e-bike? Are you serious?
No, try.
Okay.
You know,
I think the
Can't afford
e-bikes,
it. They're like
we should leave
$3,000.
it for next week. It'll be very nice.
Yeah, we'll get
Fair
onto
enough.
the e-bike next time. Absolutely. So, the one thing that the commonality in all the things today is really about the disposable oil platform, because we're getting rid of it. You know,
Yeah.
the disposable phase and the replacements. You know, and here's the thing. If you have built the wind platform, why do you still need the oil platform?
Because I like to fill up
The
my
oil
car with
platform makes a
petrol from
lot more
Excalibur.
money.
No, it's the same company. This is the same company. They only changed directions. They're same people. They just okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can imagine if you can build a wind one. What's called the wind farm, and next to the ship. Well,
Yes.
as I said, I'm from the village. It's like planting a tree and put a very big steel thing. Say these are equal friendly.
Yes, the metal tree and the real tree. Okay, points. So
Wow.
how do you summarize it?
You guys are giving me the hardest job I never had in my life. But anyway, I'm very. The good news, I'm not evil. I'm very equal. Like I love people. So
You're not evil. What are you doing on this show? This is just full of cynical people.
that's how I
And
become
Katie,
like.
of course.
I came to save your lives, guys. I'm God.
Yes.
I think this time we're gonna give David 50 because he explained a bit and he made us laugh as well. I don't know. Catch is still my favorite of her jokes. I like that because she don't like oil much. I don't know. I use cooking oil, so I like it a bit.
Yeah. It's not called hummingbird oil, is it? Or is it called Excalibur oil?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna Richard is gonna get 30 and Katie 30.
Okay.
And
Very
what about our
generous,
friend
huh?
Ian? Our
Oh
friend Ian.
yeah, no, just let's keep him 15 because you know what I mean.
You're so cruel. I think Ian should get 50.
I said no. It's up to you see, when someone is absent, right? It's not here, so it's up to the group to actually vote about the point instead of myself. I think that'd be fair enough. Instead of
Didn't you
him
hear
come
how
back and look at
funny he
me,
was?
I want him to look at all of us about this point. So what do you guys think?
But Ian's being very sustainable. He's not using any energy to join this.
You should get a bonus point.
So
He
it's
should have a bonus point.
so we can drop him
Here we
50
are.
for the last time.
Sorry, we can.
We can give him 50 because he's not using anything today.
And we. Oh yes, he has just been elevated up, and he is coming in. Oops, sorry. I'm getting this going there.
Okay.
There you go. So in the lead, Katie. Yay!
Only just doing better than the guy that didn't turn up.
Yeah,
I think
but you saved a lot of energy. So
guys, this is one of this is the best game ever. I love it. It's like one of the good better than climate change, by the way.
so it is.
I have never heard of climate change being described as a game, but it's a brilliant idea.
Well, we can go deeper. We can talk about that in another day because you were here today to, have a laugh.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. We have
Yes.
managed somewhat so far with some of the most bonkers ideas I've ever seen, actually. So we haven't done
thank you,
badly.
everyone. Yes.
Yes.
So
And, you know,
we need
what can I say? She reigns supreme. There was never any doubt, really, that she faltered at the first hurdle and then she ran away with it. You know.
Ian caught up at the end. You know, another time. So we will see again at our next time. We'll see whether Ian can keep forward. We'll keep the scores so that we can go forward with them.
That's a bit harsh.
And we'll see how we go. Or we randomize the scores to start. Well,
no, that's even harsher.
No, I was thinking, like, for example, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's different scores, and then at the end of our session, I mean, like end of maybe the 12th of December or something, or we can add them up. I don't know. We can still discuss about that.
Okay. So we're getting competitive. I see.
Yeah.
So
I see.
Yeah.
This was who's tipping over the tipping point, keeping you laughing sustainably.
Yeah, today was Kurt.
Yes.
He's a winner. So I think that for me, I think to get more points is about making us laugh to the point. And secondly, as well, it's about educating a bit of us in the other side of the jokes as well. And so it's a very good mixture of knowledge here. And then, you know, it's like, mix it out. That's how I like it. I like that way. But I'm also have to watch my because I'm scared to talk. Sometimes my mouth comes up with something. It might upset the climate. So I'm okay with that.
Fair enough.
It's been great fun.
And I really enjoyed it today. I really had a good time. This is fantastic.
Yep. I've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Katie, would you recommend it?
Oh, yes, definitely.
I love the recycling bin on the oil platform idea. We've got to pitch this to them. Get the recycling bin on the oil platform.
Oh, I'm sure they've done it already. Read their sustainability report. It'll be in there.
I'm sure you're right.
Okay, join us again.
Okay, Nico, sign off for us.
Yes, we need to sign off. Thank you so much for
today.
today.
This was Tipping Over the Tipping Point, show that keeps you laughing sustainably. And
yes, I'll say goodbye, guys. We'll see you next time. And we're here again for the Tipping Point for climate change COP28. And we're laughing. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you are. Yet another episode of Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point. Yes, Katie ran away with it that time, somewhat predictably. You know, she's not only the smartest, she's also the funniest of us. So all fair game, really. We have a live clip coming up here very, very shortly. In about 5 minutes.
I went out and got a recycling bin.
Yes.
Did you do
and
that?
I'm sure it will be mentioned in the sustainability reporting. So
what I'm going to do, make to my wife, what have I been spending all this time doing in my sustainability reporting? Yes,
exactly.
But of course, everybody does the same thing with the recycling bins, right? They just throw everything into it.
Yes, there is no primary sorting there. It's just one big pile of various stuff that allegedly is recyclable. I'm not so sure it actually is, but there we go.
It reminds us of Eddie Kitonga, his sort of technology to help you recycle and separate the things out.
Exactly.
To let you know, not in this bin.
No, exactly.
So what are you supposed to do with coffee cups? Are you supposed to recycle those?
No, I tend to put them in the washing machine, but...
You do?
Yeah, I don't.
No, I
use
mean the
single-use-
disposable ones. You know, the
Ah,
ones you
okay.
get out of a shop, and do they go? Which bin do they go into?
Well, first of all, I never ever drink coffee out of recyclable cups. I drink coffee out of a proper little cup.
Oh no, you're one of those.
Yeah, you can call me a snob or whatever, but I also love my coffee. So, no, I'm sorry, no recyclable cups for my coffee. Thank you very much. But I suspect they are probably used of some made out from some recycled material that will get recycled again, and show how infinite that chain of usage actually can be over time. I'm sure there is something written on them somewhere, but I actually
Yeah.
I don't use them. But
Yeah, usually that's recycling sign. You heard that story about the recycling sign, right? You know, it was designed. It was a competition back in, I don't know, was it 60s or 70s?
a long
Probably
time
the
ago.
70s and the day type
Yeah.
thing. And there was the American packaging company or something, make containers, paper, plastic containers, and all those things.
Okay.
And they had this competition for sustainability to design that symbol. You know that three triangles. You know, with
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
arrows going around. Yeah.
Yeah. Doing good.
And the winner came up with that design, which is fantastic. That recycling thing, it looks kind of that circular, wherever kind of symbol. So that was really great. They sponsored that. And it meant that they just had to put this label on it, and everybody would throw it away feeling good.
Yeah. There you go. What you can do with a little invention and a print on a cup. Make people
Yes.
feel good.
Yes.
There we are. So I think we are gathering the troops for our actual live part here. The event will be, if connectivity doesn't,
Well,
let us down.
let's bring Kaka on anyway. I think
Exactly.
he's the main guy. I think the others, I'm not sure where they are yet. Hey Kaka, how are
There he
you?
is.
Hello, hi. How are you?
Hi. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit to our audience?
Yep. Yeah, sure. First, thank you for the opportunity and believing that the rest are also joining us. My name is Kaka Isaiah, and I am a law student here in Kenya from the University of Nairobi. I'm a climate advocate by passion, and I have been really been passionate about what we've been doing for the last 2 months. Basically, as we wrap up for the 12 days of COP on this particular campaign, it's for you. And I have a network behind me for young people at East African campuses and colleges, Green Network, who are turning climate action into livelihoods, which is really a very good venture. As at the moment, we are really doing lots of tournament. We are now at a round of 8, and yeah, I think that should also form some part of the report that I should give you this evening, and I'm really happy to be here. Nice seeing you, Richard. Nice seeing you, David, and all the live audience that are following us online.
It's good to have you here, Kaka. Thank you so much for being here. It's getting quite late for you as well. But then again, you're a young man, so you have the stamina to keep going at all hours, unlike some of us.
It is so unfortunate that all the young people are told you are the leaders of tomorrow, and sometimes that tomorrow never arrives. So
Oh yes, oh dear.
Oh, please,
yeah,
That's
please,
exactly
please.
right.
So,
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
this statement
Tomorrow. Yes.
normally, what happened is this statement normally makes makes the young people being excluded in terms of decision making. So
Yeah.
anytime the government meets, they say, "Oh, these are young people; they still have chance," and then that chance is going out. Oh my!
You
So I
know,
So
think
young and so cynical.
we need to change that narrative.
I think he's just practical. I think he's absolutely right. You know, so but maybe a little bit more. You know, we met last COP around the time of the last COP. That's when we first had our conversations together, and I think there was the March for the Planet activity. And we kind of got talking, and you were doing the EACCGN at the time, you know, the East Africa Campuses and Colleges Green Network. So how do you
Yeah.
feel about that now? It's been a while.
Honestly, it's been a whole experience, and I can say that some part of the things that we never did before is now an eye opener to us, particularly all of us knowing at the back of our minds that climate crisis, the young people are really at direct spaces facing them already. And honestly, I can be able to say that backdated from the time we had African Climate Summit up to where we are now, I can be able to say that we are really scaling hard and really finding a niche on what exactly we need to do to ensure that we are able to create livelihoods. And it's really particularly like it's for you campaign has really given us this platform that we need to be able to showcase our capability, to be able to step out and tell the world that the solutions are in our hands, and really looking forward to bring forth those very substantive solutions that you are looking for. And just the other day I spoke to climate live in COP, though I'm here in Kenya, and there was lots of discussions about engagement of the young people in such platforms and what they think. And I really gave a keynote speech and told them that the best thing that the leaders that are in COP can do to us basically is to just do justice to the planet and just put a reduction to oil, gas, and coal emission. We all know that the green gas emissions are really the true thing that really affecting the planet, and that's my message. I think some of you saw some of the slides that I had shared on the platform, on the chat, and that is really key thing that I spoke about, and the platform was right ahead with people like Larry from CNN. Hope he's gonna carry all that particular message also to that particular point for everybody to be able to see. So in totality, I can able to say that it has really been a great experience, and we can't wait to also the outcome of football. I'm very anticipating to see who's gonna win the award. Yeah, and with the motto "You never walk alone," and that is it. We look forward to really have fancy and festive of joy as per the SCGN is pushing on to. So, yep.
There we are. Indeed. We're going to see who we're bringing on here.
Yep,
we
let's
have
bring a few
Collins
more people on
with
the
us.
stage.
We have
Philip
Philip
and
That
is
is
David
Philip.
here?
and David.
Yes. So, Philip, do you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi guys. Thanks for bringing me to the stage. I'm
Feel
excited
free
to be here.
to turn on your video too if you like, if that's convenient. Obviously, don't if you are improperly dressed or something.
Struggling perhaps with bandwidth.
Sorry about that. My camera is not very well, so
Okay.
please forgive me for that.
No
forgiven.
problem, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
There are times when I call Richard and I think, gosh, could you turn your video off?
No. There you
Yeah,
go.
but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me in here.
So tell me a bit about your background.
Yeah, so that's like more of a, it's like telling me about yourself in an interview. So almost tensed, but yeah. I am Philip Barteroy. I am the chair AICA. AICA is a community-based organization currently based in Kajiado County, and we just got started last year, mid of last year, majorly to address issues in regards to the Maasai culture and climate change. So that's us. So I'm excited to be here. I was invited by Kaka. He, told me that we have a discussion in regards to water and the Maasai culture. So I guess that's more of an introduction for now. We can share more.
Okay, well, thank you. And we'll come back to all that a little bit more. And Collins, we often hear you mention Kajiado County, where Philip comes from. So how about yourself? How are you connected with? Are you connected with the Maasai? Is there a personal connection there?
Hello. Glad to be here. Hello, David, Richard. Hi, Kaka.
Hi.
And David. Yeah. Glad seeing you today. Yes, David, I have a connection with Kajiado. I think Kaka can attest to that. And it has been an experience for me working with communities around the region, particularly with the youth and the women, and the whole aspect of climate issues. I had an opportunity to actually be coordinating the adaptation fund project, which was actually being implemented by one of the grassroots organizations in Kajiado, a women-led organization. And so I had an interaction of how the women in this region are actually taking steps to manage the crisis, and particularly with regards to the water issues, the socio-economic aspects, and it has been indeed an experience. And now connecting the Kaka and the ESCGN network students and the amazing work they are doing. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. And finally, we have David. And do you want to unmute yourself and just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes. I greet you all. Good evening. It's evening here. My name is David Mterian Kuyata, and I came in when comedy was going on, so I was keenly to listen. And just to add on something, because we're in the line of comedy, right now I'm at home, and the Kajiado you're talking about, that's where I am right now. So if you hear some background sound, cows, dogs, just know I'm home. So I'm so glad to join you guys and to address this noble topic for today. Water for Maasai, I know, is an extensive topic and something to be addressed and to be, to lay a strategy and work on it. However, all is well. We have been in the office today running different programs, and today, and we had a conversation that people are talking about tree planting and something, and that tells us there is hope. Young people are coming out with different ideas, beautiful ideas, and that's a small step that our moderator David was talking about. The little step, you might be going in a little pace, but the most important thing is that you're heading toward the right direction. So I believe that I to make a difference, I need to take that step. You need to take that step. Then I believe we are going to have a better tomorrow and a better world to live in. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you, David. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, everyone who is here. Let us address this. And I believe that all this is going to work out well, and you're going to have a better tomorrow. So thank you from my side.
Thank you. So let's get moving. Water for Maasai. Now, the idea came through when I visited Kaka at the time of the launch of the EACCGN, the East Africa Camps and Colleges Green Network. And it was the end of a drought that was a multi-year drought. And he was telling me about the pastoral society community that the Maasai represents. Now, I don't know much about Kenya. I don't know much about kind of the continent of Africa and the diversity there. And this is really my first time I've really been there. But I think most people have seen these pictures of the Maasai. Basically, they're in red. They're the classic image that you find when you see something about about Africa, really. And so it's a very kind of it's very much the sort of thing that everybody recognizes. It's ubiquitous in the way that people think about it. I'm going to try and bring up a picture just to show what I mean. So just bear with me for one moment. And there you are. So that's kind of the Maasai people that we have there. And he took me back to where he lived, and then he started giving me this description of what happened over the period of drought. Their community is actually a very modern community in many ways. So this is the aspect I started to understand about indigenous life today. So Kaka is a Maasai warrior who is a law student, who's a top law student in the top university in Kenya. That's basically how it is. And at home and in the urban area, they cross over with that constantly, all the time. As David is describing, he's in Kajiado, which is a place where the Maasai is kind of the one of the counties where they are around in that way. And even when you're in Nairobi, you see them walking around through there. The aspect about the drought was that traditionally, in times they would have these long migratory paths, in the sense of pastoral paths, with their cattle and with their goats, and they take it around the country. And I then later learned that a lot of place names are Maasai names because they travel through the vast expanse of land historically, all around. So I learned that Nairobi itself is a is a Maasai word, and they basically go around and give many place names to many of the places. And Richard and I come from this economic angle, and we always have this kind of economic perspective in the sense, because from us, if you can't get the economics right, it's not going to work. And as we go forward, the two of us are adamant, as we explained what was last night, I can't remember now, things seem to fly so fast, about how the economics is going to get harder and harder. So if you're actually going to look about indigenous life and how to maintain it, how to make it work, we have to think about it in a way that it actually creates value for everybody within the community, not just for the indigenous people, but for everybody around it. And so it became, we started having this discussion. We sat in a park, we brainstormed through various things. And the more we thought about it, the more I came to this understanding that actually the livelihood is being threatened by all manner of things. It's being threatened because in the drought, as they lose their livestock, they're being forced to sell the land. If you're a pastoral community, you start selling your land, they basically have nowhere to exist. So that's one aspect that's very fundamental and very basic. The second part of it is when you are trying to take your animals during a poor period of drought from one area to another, and there's a big road in front of you that you can't just cross. Your animals are too weak to go 50 kilometers around one way to find another crossing point and come back, in that sense. So the modern world is being built in a way that crisscrosses. And Kaka pointed out that within the law in Kenya, the right to graze is there for the Maasai to graze their animals. But the right of passage is being interfered with. Not with any particular malicious intent, but it's just the way urban development goes. And this is exactly the situations that we keep hearing in our conversations over the past few days, and undoubtedly we'll hear again, which is the unintended consequences of development. And a lot of the energy that the young people have talked about reconnecting with nature made us, at that time when we were sitting in the park and talking about it, to consider how we might actually be able to preserve this amazing pastoral community throughout Africa, throughout Kenya and East Africa and the regions where they are. And to do that, what you need to do is to preserve the ability to travel around. Now, when you look at that, what you then find amazingly is, of course, when they're able to do this, they actually help the land. They bring along better aspects for the land, for the animals and those things. And that's exactly what you want to see. And we started having this aspect about how can you make a proposal to preserve this lifestyle by preserving the land, by preserving the migratory paths, the pastoral paths across vast distances in a way that actually brings benefits to all the community. Not just for the Maasai, but for people to recognize what is good for indigenous life is going to be good for all the communities. It's going to be good for all the countries. It's going to force us to rethink how our cities want to be looking like, how our economics ought to be looking like, and where we ought to be thinking about the possibility. And just to throw that into there before I bring Abraham onto the stage as well, is this aspect where I had this kind of idea, and Richard may like this, of a 100-kilometer Maasai walk, where you have a holiday and you go for walk 100 meters, 100 kilometers over maybe like, 4 days, 5 days, or whatever it is. And that would be your holiday, a bit like, the dude ranches and those cowboy things you have in America. And you have many of those things where you can actually have a whole kind of a form of an ecotourism that actually helps to preserve it, because it brings in revenues and it brings in notice and interest, and it also allows that to bring in interest for other communities too. So I'm just going to bring in Abraham. Hello, Abraham. Good to see you.
Hello. Thank
So,
you. Thank
do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes. Huh?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
We
Hi,
lost someone.
everyone.
We lost Richard.
This is Abraham. Huh?
Yes.
I'm from Kenya.
And
I'm from Kenya. Yes. And I'm happy to joining the group and hoping that the discussions here is going to bring impact of the project that we're planning to bring forth. So I'm believing that we're going to work on well. Yes.
so what I want to do is really just to enable conversation between you all. You're all interested, and you all have an interest in there, and basically the way I think of this is, I guess first of all I want to think about how you guys think about that, what you think of the situation, and then to go on to the next part of what do you think is necessary in order to do this, and how to bring in who might be the principal people that would be a beneficial to have, and then how they can come about in different phases. And there may be other ideas of what might be possible, but ultimately what we are looking to is just kind of a sharing of our ideas about just how indigenous life in something like the pastoral living can actually be economically significant to a modern economy and to a modern country like Kenya today.
I think I can jump in as others also gather ideas so that they can also contribute into this. Allow me first of all to say that really I appreciate this, David, and thank you, because since the day we met and we took a tour in my place and the mode of how we try to create water for ourselves and also for the animals is really a great adventure. But I think if you look at the Kenyan history, for instance, if you look at the first president of the Republic of Kenya and the son as well, all the names that they had are all from the Maasai community. So basically, it is the Maasai community who named them. If you look at the word Kenyatta, Kenyatta basically comes from the word belt. A belt, Kenyatta in Kimasai is basically a belt that just some sort of traditional belt that is made out of leather. And he was named by the Oloibon who collaborated with the British back then in the colonial period. And if you look at still history, all the places that we have in Kenya, including Nairobi being the CBD, Nairobi means the place of cool waters, and it is now the CBD of the country. But it is so unfortunate that you'll not even see any inhabitant of the Maasai community there. It could be because of the setup of their mode of livelihoods, because these are the communities that really migrate a lot in terms of looking for pasture for their animals. And one of the biggest challenge, I think, for the last 2 years, back in 2019, we recorded the largest number of animals lost in the drought, and it did not just affect the Maasai community, but the country ran short of meat. If you look at Kenya Meat Commission (KMC), it has given a report that they never see such a drop for the last decade. So you can be able to see that it is not only the Maasai who really face this crisis ahead, but even the country, and in terms of economy and also all sort of manner of livelihood for the country also goes down. And I can say that one of the biggest challenge we have is, one is the pasture, and then the other one is water. And if you look at what for some of the activity we've been doing in some community linked organization, is that one of the biggest challenges that I think the mass people have is that they've not been getting that opportunity to be taught on how they can be able to manage the number of animals they have. This is a very big challenge because like currently they are rainy season, but you'll find there's a family which has got over 1,000 cows and they are all fat. But then they don't sell these animals because they are their pride. These people really love animals, you know. They can even sleep with the animals in the shed, in the cow shed. They really love them. And because there's no sort of economy model that says, you know, we need to reduce this number of animals when they still have value. You can sell them and reduce to a manageable herd that you need. But then they don't have that kind of education. So what happens is when the drought strikes, all these animals, about 70% of them die, and they are left with very small number of animals. So what I think is this is a whole conversation, not just in terms of looking for water, basically, but also in how do we deploy education to tell them that there are so many other ways that you can be able to, things that we do in terms of keeping livestock, keeping goats. For example, we have got drought tolerant animals like the camel. We can integrate this, which basically can take long distance and long time without basically looking for water. So these are some of the ways we can basically integrate with the breeds we have. If you look at the black-headed sheep, for example, zebu animal, which is a crossbreed of exotic and also indigenous animals, they can be able to give you milk, and at the same time they can give you meat. So you see, you can benefit from milk by selling either milk, also drinking the milk, but at the same time it can also give you meat. So I want to say that one of the biggest challenge we have is basically water. Basically, sometimes not pasture being a big challenge, but water is really an issue, and this had forced our communities to move away from the CBD, and that is why you find that despite the fact that most of us come from were inhabited of different places in this country, Kenya, even in East Africa, we are no longer there because we are pushed by the situation. You cannot just keep the animals in Nairobi, and that is why our laws comes and says, there's no law that says a Maasai person should not graze animals along the road, along the railing, along whatever it is. And actually, I think even in Kenya, I think the Maasai community, because of the rich cultural heritage, they are the only people who are allowed to walk with their ornaments, like the swords and all that in the public, in the national events park here in Kenya. Nobody can ask a Maasai, why are you getting in with a sword or with a club or whatever it is. They just know that it's a way of life, and that is one aspect. So, and then the other aspect that we can also approach this idea of water for Maasai, we can make it abroad. If you look at our culture, it is the only tribe that has got the outstanding culture that can attract tourists. It is our Maasai community in Kenya is it's a whole vibe. Like people come and watch them dance. They have their dancing way. They have their lifestyle. They have their houses which are made up of mud from the animals, and it is a whole economy perspective on how we can be able to maybe make an additional creation of livelihoods into that line. So as we get deep into this, what I would love us to do, what Philip does at the level of the CBO, they've really been trying hard to see how they can be able to cap the issue of water situation. For instance, harvesting of rainwater has been a big thing to be able to ensure that the water that runs from rooftops and all that is actually tapped. And then the other idea is, we've been also teaching the communities on small scale farming, whereby you can grow small vegetables around your place because there's issue of water. So the water you use in every aspect, you recycle that water to ensure that it is used in different perspectives. And if you go by that, maybe by the time the sheep or the cows have not given birth and there is no milk, the communities can use the vegetables. So that kind of integration can really create a whole perspective of how livelihood can be created. Lastly, according to UNFCCC, if you look at some of the indigenous communities that are set out in the reports that are given, they say that about 60% of the indigenous land is at a risk, and we have seen this not once, not twice, and the reason why they are at risk is because is one of them is what David have mentioned, that when there is no better way of livelihood, people will sell land. That's one way, and when people you compromise land to pave way for buildings which are going to create chaos and everything, interference of like paths that we used to do when we were grazing, and therefore the biggest indigenous knowledge is what is used in the whole world to protect biodiversity. If you look at like the other day, we had reports in Kenya of the longest forest people who are called the Dorobo. They are being pushed away out of that place. And if you look at Mount Kenya, this is the place where we have all the sources of streams of water. Mount Kenya has water that trickle down all the way that everybody is using in Nairobi. And these people, their lifestyle have been used to be, living in that particular place. So through this, I think we can pinch this in different phases. I maybe I can stop there, but I know we all have really great ideas on how this can be, brought by. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. How about let's hear from other people. Um, Abraham,
Thank
you spoke before, so when we met before. So how do you think of
thank
your picture of how you think what are the things that the indigenous life can bring to the whole Kenya, and how can we actually help and make use of that, and what sort of things would that be?
thank you thank you, my brother Kaka, because of such great minds. And my brother David, the first time you visited Kenya, I asked you why you came to Kenya. He said I came to Kenya because of the Maasai community, and
Yeah.
Maasai community is a global heritage. Yeah? So, like Kaka said, that the Maasai community are now facing challenges all over, and such great minds and ideas of how we thought of how we can change and bring change, how we can change and come up with the potential chances and possibilities to transform and bring back. Though it is somehow difficult for now. I think it is important when we think of number one, education. The only thing and the first thing that will transform our community to a better place, like we always say, is about education. So my thinking on about the Maasai community and the whole project we had about the water for Maasai and the paths and the routes they used to use in the past about migration and the whole thing. I think the most important thing is education and educating our people on how we are going to get the potential possibilities and chances. So I think because we'll keep forward and we'll keep talking about this and we'll keep discussing. I think education is what I speak about, and education is what I can tell you about. As my fellow brothers also are going to discuss and bring forth these conversations that can proceed. Thank you.
Muted myself again. I have to unmute myself to remind me. But thank you there. So the education part, and again, Kaka pointed out about the education part, and you talk about, educating about, and this is not just sort of school education. This is education about understanding the environment and what we can do, and in some ways the advantages that we may have in that way. So how about David? What do you think? You actually in a Maasai community at the moment in Kajiado. I see red kind of color behind you, which is a very characteristic color
Yeah,
of the Maasai.
yeah,
What do you think
yeah,
are the things that? Over to you.
absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. Yeah, it's true. I'm there right now, and actually, I really appreciate because of the background you gave. I think I was listening to you when you started, and I was like, "Hey, David did a lot of research, and only to follow and realize that you came and you went to the ground, and you say, there is a saying here in Kenya that mambo ni different kwa ground. I don't know if you will get that, but I'll teach you when you come back to Kenya. Yeah, that when you go to the ground, that is where you get the real scenario of how things are. You'll not be told stories, but we'll go and realize what has happened. Kaka has also given us a history and has laid a background and a foundation for the talk of today. He has given us the background of where we come from. Why do we refer, as Abraham says, we are referred as a heritage? Why is that the case? I think Kaka has laid a very good background on that. Let me just say that all these factors that we mentioned are really affecting not only the Maasai community, but the broader perspective of or a longer range of people. Because you realize, just as you mentioned, when we have that, when you have the drought, they're affected with drought. A lot of kettles die. You realize that even if we are exporting meat to other countries, that production will go, the production will go down, and therefore is going to affect. Again, it's also important to realize that this community, as far as there are a lot of communities here in Kenya, and Maasais they're among the indigenous communities. That is one, and two, they are also among the marginalized community. I think that's where the rangers, meaning that we are not that bigger community. However, I appreciate the way we are coming up. I mean, education is really falling onto us. So there's something that I want to single out to give a lot of weight on these factors that affect us. You realize that drought sometimes affects a lot of a good number of the Maasais, and you realize when these cattle die, and Okaka mentioned and said, we love cattle. I mean, an old man can even sleep in with the kettles, and it's just okay. But this brings an effect even to a generation that is coming, because you realize that there is what we call when a girl is being married to another family, there is that dowry that is being paid, and you realize sometimes we lose a lot of kettles, and a home is left with nothing. So what will happen? These young girls of ours who are in school, some of them are married off, so that this old man or rather this family can have can regain the kettles back, and realize that will really affect the community at large and the society, because now you realize that maybe that young girl or those girls had dreams, were in school, and you realize that their dreams are being cut short, so broadly that affect the community. So I think
You've gone mute, David. You've just gone mute here. I don't know if I can unmute you.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
You were talking about
Sorry for
how
that.
the effect of it can broadly affect community way beyond simply, just the cattle. Is the fact that this is
Yeah.
the money that you have, and so as a result you're pushed to desperate actions, and
Yeah,
those desperate
absolutely. And
actions can destroy the ambitions of the young people.
yeah, yeah,
How about you, Philip?
so I was just saying. So
Yep, please
as I
carry on, David.
conclude, I'll just say that as I conclude, I just say that there is hope, because when we see us having such a platform like this and addressing the issues to do with water with Maasai, remember, water is life. And I've seen a lot of NGOs, I've seen some people from abroad coming, bringing support. You realize that when you empower these people, they move to another level. That is exactly what we have. That is a conversation that we need to have. When we empower them, they move to another level. Bring the new technologies of farming. Like, there's no need of having 300 head of kettles. You can have at least 10 freshens, and to realize the production of milk will be there. So there is a solution. But if we go deep and bring this awareness, I'll not speak a lot. Let me give to my friends. Yeah, that's my take.
That's really great, and this is the aspect where again there is a new knowledge of animal husbandry. What's the balance between the amount we keep now? how do we take advantage of rain when it comes? How do we actually and of course one thing I recognize that's important is that for a pastoral community, money doesn't have the same meaning as money do to people in urban centers in that way. And in today's world, in the world of somewhere like Kenya and many of the countries around it, the loss of value of paper money is a significant problem. So if I sell the cow, then I am actually losing money every day. And if I keep the cow, then I'm keeping the value of what I have every day. So I can understand that difficulty. I can understand that, bringing in an additional economics, so that I'm not left with just paper in my mattress and hoping that somehow they keep value, but that there can be something else that they can help with the livelihoods all around. And I think that brings in this element of saying, what are the beneficial economics that we can do? What is the transition between them? So I think those would be really interesting. How about you, Philip? What do you think?
Yes, thanks, David. Yeah, great ideas from you guys. And I like what you mentioned now, something regards to money. I think one challenge we've had with our communities is, well, the Maasai lived with their animals, and they never regarded them as an economic model, but it's part of their life. For instance, if the photo you shared, you'll see that in most of the photos you'll see online, and regards to the Maasai, you'll also always see them in red color. So that's like the trademark, or it's a theme. It's in red because it represents one, blood. It represents love. Yeah, those photos. You see, most of them they are always in red. Why? Because we believe that we're interconnected with our animals. Maasai used to take the blood of the animals directly. Raw blood. I don't know whether, David, you could take that. It's actually delicious. So
I'll have to try it the next time. I have to give that a go.
yeah.
Please carry on, Philip.
Keeping the animals, pastoralism and whatever. So what we can do is help them, like what the other guys have said, to enhance the pastoralism. Like Kaka mentioned, something to do with drought resistant animals. Like the sheep is mentioned and everything. And yeah, so I think that's all we can do about the animals. So yeah, I would like to mention something in regards to the culture, and I think we all agree that we. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we
yes,
can hear
yes,
you.
we can. Yep. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So we all agree that there are challenges in regards to preservation of the Maasai culture, and it's actually headed to a dangerous direction where maybe in the next recent years to come, it might be phased out, or most of it will be eroded. So what could we do? What can be done, to at least,
Philip, you
You have lost
have
him.
we kind of lost you momentarily. I think you were talking about what can we do, and in that way, I'd like to bring up some of the points, or maybe actually, Collins.
We
I
can't
think
hear
you,
you,
you.
guys. I don't know.
Oh,
Let's.
can you hear me?
I can
Can you
hear
guys
you.
hear me? Okay, so the rest of you can
David,
hear
I
me.
can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. Well, the other who can hear me? Hands up. Can you hear me? Okay. David and Abraham and Collins can hear me. So I can't hear Phillips. But Collins, how do how do you summarize what's been said? How do you think about that?
Thank you, David. Kaka, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, colleagues. I could not hear David. Yep, I can hear you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, interesting conversation. And from where I see it, I just feel like, I get listening from, my friends who are actually, they have grown up in this kind of environment. They understand the issues that they are talking about. And I think from where I sit, and David, maybe how you started this conversation, I'll speak for one. Let me speak now for the women. I know this discussion is going to pick it up from here. We are to get more people from into the discussion, but there is an emotional aspect that comes from the issue when we talk about water. And when David, you mentioned about 100-kilometer walk and how the It's For You campaign has come along, and I was thinking about the intergenerational, kind of talk, and looking at that journey, it's like retracing our roots, and I feel like it's important to have that kind of a journey, where we have our grandfathers leading us into this, memorable kind of emotional journey or walk to just let the people understand how important this kind of discussion is, because Kaka, David, I agree with what you have said. In most cases, when people talk about drought, probably they just think about there is no they affect the environment, the livestock, but the spillover effect of that, it's so deep, and I feel like it's important for us to keep this conversation going. And number two, from the discussion Kaka mentioned, we also have the pressures that are coming along with the the urbanization and the aspect about the culture that Kaka talked about, and how the issues about land and a whole mix of complex issues that are rising into that. And so from the points that they have mentioned, I'll just summarize by saying yes, it's time to have this genuine conversation, and to amplify the voices that are actually coming from the people who are feeling the pressures, the children, the women, our grandparents, to be able to speak and let this voice go to to the leadership, to the world, to understand that the crisis and nature is talking to us that it's time to act. And so yes, David, so I'm looking forward on how this rolls up. And I was trying to imagine that you talked about the migratory path, the livestock, and that journey. I think that journey is a journey that is supposed to bring the intergenerational aspect about it, so that even the next generations can understand what are the steps Kaka, David M, and Philip are actually trying to do for the generations to come. So thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things I'm finding, we had conversations before, obviously, but the elements from where Richard, I'm going to try and bring him in as well, and I, in terms of our sort of background, for people to understand, Richard and I were investment managers for 30 years, so we were helping big money make lots of money. Basically, that's what our job was. And one of the aspects about what we learn from that is you have to be very careful about whether all of your investments are basically in the same thing or whether they're not. So if you grow vegetables and you have livestock, then what happens is if there's a drought, your vegetables have problems and your livestock have problems. So in a way, you're investing in the same thing. But there are other sort of activities which might be possible. So the idea of 100-kilometer Maasai walk is something that actually during the time of drought, as you migrate from one area to another area, which may have more water along, you can bring revenue in from attracting people from outside, and in doing so, bring notice to the effect of what drought means to people from outside. And you can do this with education, so it becomes an education all around. And the striking thing that I remember from a conversation was a comment someone made about how as people become urbanized, Kaka, who's studying to be a lawyer, and I've no doubt he will become a very prominent lawyer and be one of the prominent kind of light in that way. And that will call for him to spend more and more time in urban settings. And if he has family, then those children are removed because you want your children to grow up with you. And again, activities which can allow that intergenerational exchange to be able to connect back in that way. I think those things allow that to go on through. And so being able to continue, being able to think about those things, the economics you bring. I think there have been various things that have been said actually, which I think from my side, basically kind of education, how do we bring about that? And the mention of different types of cows, the number of livestock, the life cycle of managing them and dealing with that. The aspect about water that comes on through, very important, the water part. How do we collect water? How do we make our ways of collecting water very natural, so that they can last for longer and they can use that? How do we use water? Those are actually knowledge that can be very helpful to other people along there. And because the Maasai travel everywhere, they almost by definition are the people who know best where to collect water. It's like the stories of the nomadic tribes in deserts. They know where the oases are because they know the land, they know the way the plants grow, they know where they ought to be. And in that way, as the animals pass through, we've heard about stories about regenerative agriculture. We heard stories about how people, a lady in another part of Kenya is using agriculture to avoid the problems of young girls losing their ambitions by being married too early, and actually realizing that's the way to empower genuinely that sort of thing, which their families actually want to do. It's not like it's against what their families want to do. It's what their families want to do. It's just kind of how do you manage to meet the challenges. So I think we probably have a lot of material to bring back together. And I think after this, I'd like to take this clip of what's been said and share that around, and maybe each one can then think, what do we think of as the positives that we can think of, and saying, okay, how can we do that? Because even in the negatives, there are positives. It is in the challenges that we discover the opportunities.
Absolutely.
And this part of being on the ground that was made, because the ones there on the ground know best. And so know best out of what you've said, what are the opportunities and what are the things that can be there. So I think that's kind of my task is after this is, to take out that segment, share that to everyone. And you can share that with your friends and things, and then actually ask, what opportunities do they actually see? When we are not saying, we had a conversation, we had a call this morning with a lady in Pakistan, Dr. Sadia Khalid, I believe her name was, who was making a point about that small first step. It doesn't need money, but taking that small step takes away the fear. And then what you need to do is to be quite structured and systematic in thinking through what that will take you for the subsequent steps. They don't have to be perfect or they don't have to work, but you have to have some sort of a plan for yourself so that you can actually go forward, because otherwise there will be too much second guessing and not enough will kind of bring conversation to all the other people around. So how does that, Richard? How does that sound to you? What do you think from your summary of what's been said?
I think there are various aspects we can A, focus on, and B, spread to others so we can actually enrich in the discussion and come up with better ideas. For me, it seems like it's going to be incredibly central to figure out how you are going to collect, store, and use water. That will be absolutely central, those three bits. Can you collect it? Can you store it? How little can you get away with using? Because it's going to be a very, very, very central to the sort of continuation of the tradition, because it's not going to get easier from the climate side.
No, but I would like to add actually that there's an extra dimension to that, because as a pastoral life, and from my understanding from before, I think Abraham was the person who told me that before, is that people used to travel from place to place in times of drought and seasons change and so on. So the question of storing water is about how to prepare in the different regions, knowing where they are.
Absolutely.
So it's not the same as I live in one place and how do I store water in this place? It's about how do I take advantage of the different changes in all the different areas of land so that I have a ready path. It's like in, is it Sweden or Norway, where they have those huts for people to go hiking in winter?
Yeah.
And they're stocked up, basically.
Yeah.
And people know where they are on the map and they can make the hikes and they go there and they know there will be, something to light a fire. They know there will be, something for them to be able to rest and so on.
It's a refuge. But yeah. Even if you make the sort of distinction between nomad or pastoral lifestyles compared to stationary one, it doesn't change the fact that you will need to figure out how you're going to collect and store the water. Just that you have to do it in multiple locations, and some of them might not be very suited.
And therefore, in that way, some of the things that Kaka and I talked about, right? That, you can have very basic captures of energy that's around all the time. Little wind that blows along. They can help you just to pump up water and store it. And they can just be there. Sure. And you can actually become the people who are experts in that sort of off-grid technology. How to capture energy away from needing a large grid. So that's a dimension that just in this conversation as you're describing comes on through.
No, absolutely.
And again, if you do that, it benefits all the other communities around.
Sure. It will, per definition, have to be a small grid, local grid, because my assumption will be looking at the map of the world that the pastoral nomadic areas of the world in general, and Kenya in particular, not being exactly a small country, is not going to be connected to a large grid for a long, long time to come. And many areas will simply perhaps never be. So the energy solutions per definition will have to be local or localized. There is just no way you can connect it to a central.
Yes.
Then you have the aspect of mitigation and adaptation. Can you work with different types of animals that are more resistant? How much that actually changed their overall lifestyle? Is that a quantum leap or is it just a tweak?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you I just want to say thank you to everybody, and maybe you can all give kind of a short summary of how you feel about this, and we'll get another chance to speak again and take it on to the next level. Kara, do you want to start first?
Yeah. What I will say is that I'm a staunch believer of change. Because if you look at what I have achieved at my very young age is really a complex thing, kind of a situation, and God has enabled me to be able to have that kind of a voice to be able to reach to everyone. I got a chance to speak to Ruto just after his election. I gave him actually one of the books about sustainable truth, and I think with this kind of exposure, I think the last time we talked with you, David, we mentioned that we need to identify resources because they are everywhere, and that's also what I believe in. And what we need to do is we need to have this extensive conversation. In fact, the next meeting, I'm going to bring someone called a Fantas who I'm really trying to think of the diaspora people who lives in the UK and all the other places. These people are Maasai, majorly at Maasai community. About over 10 people who come from Kajiado who lives in the diaspora, and I'm pretty sure, pulling together, thinking together through one aspect. Maybe boreholes might not work for us. Maybe dams might not be maybe a way. We have to think on a really a very critical kind of way that can be able to help us in that line. The other aspect is basically, extensive this calls to different rich Maasai people like the governors where we come from. And I know that when they carry this conversation and have this dialogue, there always be solutions out of that. The other day we had a conservancy that was taken away from us as the Maasai community. This was a place that used to raise a revenue of about 100 million every year. From the animals, it borders Tanzania on one side, and just the other day Ruto gave it back to the Maasai community, which was a very big plus to us, because now it means through the tourism activities, the indigenous people can put money directly to their pocket. And honestly, what I believe is that, if you look at even the mode of our mothers, the art they have at their hands, the way they make beads, this is really a whole economics perspective that we can be able to indulge in as a way of diversity, not just necessarily to stick to animals basically, but we can be able to have diverse means of how we can be able to create a livelihood. So this is an endless conversation, and how I believe that we can be able to be picking these talks in different phases. I hope that we will be able to have some sort of writing also to be able to be following up on what exactly stage we are and what we are doing, but maybe to be just very practical part of it. I think AICO will be really a better place to maybe start pulling this out, because it's registered a community-based organization. It has been there on the ground doing a lot of things, and I think if you link this through, and then I think Kenya can be really a model of everything. It can run now across Tanzania and every other places of origin of the indigenous communities, specifically the Maasai people. So I just want to say really thank you for all of you. And then also thank you, Collins, for bringing the aspect of women, because really women are really also the epitome of change in terms of what they do. Like if you look at my primary school, I was brought up by my mom through selling out of beads, and to me this was really great. I remember how I used to, some years down the line, there was a place in Nairobi whereby all the Maasai women will come down and put their beads on the ground, and then they will sell. And that's how I was brought up through my O levels, and grew up studying and all kind of thing. And of course, to people like us who the community is looking out for, we understand that there is a lot of land for the Maasai that is lost unconstitutionally, like this land gone out of their hands, lots of acres of land. Either they were conned because they have a new aspect about papers. We stand to believe that we are going to reclaim all this and bring back to the community. And through that, we'll be able to bring a whole change to the people and also to the community at large. Those are in my 2 cents, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Philip?
Yes, thanks again. Great comment from Kaka there. And thank you guys for this conversation. Thank you, David. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Collins. Thank you, the other guys, for joining in. I believe what starts here today is something good that's going to make a great impact, not only in the lives of the Maasais, but to other communities around. And I believe this is phase one of this conversation. And I believe that we'll be doing frequent conversations in regards to the same. Maybe suggest that maybe we could be doing it at least maybe once in a month. And like Kaka said, we need to expand the conversation, like extend it to other people of the same mind. He mentioned people in diaspora. He mentioned local authorities. We also have people in our communities that could be, could have very good ideas that could take us forward. And I'm very interested in your thought of the 100 kilometers walk. We could make this one of way of reaching out to the community first. Like we can invite very prominent people to work with us, and then we could have this conversation with local communities. I also mentioned something to do with something we called cultural boma. We're working on that, and maybe some other time when we are open, we'll invite you guys. We could come and have a dialogue and see how to preserve the culture as long as try and improve the lives of people around. So for now, you can actually Google for Masai Manyata. If you Google that, you'll be able the Google Maps will be able to lead you to the exact location where the cultural boma is located at. So for now, I guess we could, we go thinking about other ideas on how to, improve the livelihoods of these people, and mostly how to preserve this culture, because it is a resource not only to us, but it's something very important to, the future generations. So I guess that's what I can share for now, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you. And David?
Thank you, David. I see you're also David, so my namesake. So I'll not have much to say on. A lot have been said, but I just want to highlight that the community that we are talking about today, the Maasai, there is two aspects. I know there are many, but let me mention two. That is one of the characters that they have. One, these people are very peaceful. They have even welcomed other communities, and if you follow the history of Kajiado County, is turning to be a metropolitan, meaning that other communities have come here, we have mingled together, and it's so peaceful. Two, they are so welcoming. So even those from abroad, those from all over, they always have a tendency of welcoming everyone to their home, teaching the culture. Like last year, I had a lady from the UK. She came home. She said that I want to test blood. How you guys do it? Actually, she did it. I have some videos. Maybe probably I'll share sometime. But just to conclude on this is that when I see such a conversation in such a platform, we see hope and we see change coming. And who is addressing this? I see a face of young people in the front line addressing such issues, meaning that in a few years to come, we'll be having a different conversation. So we really have hope on this. And thank you, David and Richard, for bringing this on board and for addressing this. I just want to say that we are heading to the right direction, and in a short while, or rather in few years to come, if all these are going to be addressed, we are going to have a different conversation. We are going to have young people from even this community coming out and also helping others, because you help them today, they will help others tomorrow. But just as I like the conversation that David had towards the COP28, that redirecting the spending. I mean, redirecting it to the needy. I mean, to where exactly we can impact, where we can, where we can change the world.
I really like that conversation. And therefore, if we redirect, bring it down to the ground and probably help such communities, help these growing countries, will be able to have a better world to live. So thank you very much, and I wish you all a good night.
Thank you. And Collins, last words from you.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for my dear brothers for giving us a clear perspective of water. Water is life, and I just want to say I'm looking forward to the next discussion about this issue. And there is a short safari series like an ebook written by David Waweru, and he titled it "Where Did the Water Go?" And that kind of puts us in a post just to be quiet and understand that aspect of what will happen. And from the It's For You discussions about especially the meditation part of prayer and meditation and the discussion we have been having, and the journey about this work that I'm actually looking forward to. Let be a time for the leaders and the people who love the culture of the Maasai to also stand still and just reflect. Actually, where did the water go? I think from that starting point, people will learn to appreciate that it's indeed important for us to take care of our planet. So thank you.
And thank you. And Richard comes from Sweden. In the north of Sweden, there are the Sami people, and they again have this issue between the increasing changes of the landscape, sometimes from the climate, sometimes from the urbanization, sometimes from factors which is just to do with just the global economy and the way it changes. I think I'm really encouraged by the comments here. I'm really excited at the prospect of going for a 100-kilometer walk. I think this idea of getting prominent people to do this is a great way to start. And and the walk, I can feel it. It's going to be such a great feeling. It's going to be so liberating in many ways, that aspect, people to connect. And you know what? These things we can do without necessarily having anything there, because the land is there. It's all available. It's still there, and it takes a few days. And in those few days, we can connect. So I'm really looking forward to that too. I think that's a great kind of opportunity to start. We can see the lie of the land. We can see where the water is, where the water is not. We can see the communities, and we can say hi to everybody. What could be better than that? So thank you, and thank you very much for everybody. And we'll catch up with you afterwards, and we'll find out more, and we'll get another opportunity before the end of the 12 days to get yourselves back together. I hope that Kanta would have been able to join us, and maybe she's going to be the next time. And I have a message from Abraham, who was earlier and cannot connect back, and it says, on about tracing the migratory paths and routes of the pastoralists or the Maasai community. It is important when it's done in the 4 steps you mentioned, because it's to be beneficial not only to the Maasai community but also to the entire Kenya. So I think that's the best part of this, which echoes what Dave is saying. It's a peaceful community, it's a metropolitan community, and what this is trying to do for Water for Maasai is not just for Maasai, but it's for you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So, then we get Richard. Are you there? So,
I am
Richard.
Here. I think you had managed to hog the whole screen to yourself. For yourself.
I did, as always.
Yes.
As always. So, what should we do now?
Well, we have had a very serious discussion, and we've always promised you there would be a serious discussion when we drift into these areas that are very close to our hearts. And I think we've done that, and there's a lot to reflect upon there. And I think next time we get together for Water of Masai, we will be able to ponder some of those things a little bit more and perhaps reach some further conclusions about what needs doing really with regard to the Masai people and their paths that they have traveled for centuries. However, we shall still stay on a relatively serious subject in many ways. And David spoke earlier when we came on air tonight about the sandwich generation and the pressures facing them from both sides, so to speak. You feel compelled to look after your parents, and at the same time you have the demands from raising children that I can testify to has not become easier over the years. They're certainly one of the most expensive things I've ever managed to get. However, I'm in somewhat a little bit luckier situation than David, because mine are older and they've checked out, and in finance parlor they are now off the books, which is quite liberating financially, to be perfectly honest. However, this is an issue facing a lot of people, and it's something I feel we actually should take a closer look to. What are the financial demands on us? I'm speaking here liberally about the older people of Generation X and the youngest people in the baby boomer generation, which really are the ones facing these double pressures from both sides. So David has prepared a brilliant clip that we are going to play. And after that, we're going to have a little bit about discussion around the whole area, because we are, after all, serious people, before we round off in a more light-hearted fashion.
Okay. Okay. So this is a conversation I had with my good friend, and you know, we've been through a lot together, and we've followed each other in our lives. And I connected with her about our Is For You campaign, and we had a conversation. And out of that conversation, it drifted into office, as conversations often do, the things which are in one way or another most prominent on our minds. And I realized one thing. We spoke with a lot of young people, and the pressures that affect how fast we can change in the more developed world has to do with the lifestyle of the people there, just the same as the pressures on the lifestyles of the people in places like Pakistan and other places, well, Peru and other places that we've spoken to, affect the way that they're able to move forward within this kind of migration to a richer world and a better future. That is what the decarbonization is meant to provide us. But against those hurdles are in some ways the structural aspects, and the structural aspect of people, of families within the developed world, by and large, the richer, what's considered richer in the developed world, is that we've become very small families. Our parents live far away from us. Our children sometimes actually live far away from us too, because we don't necessarily always live together anymore, even if they're young. And our jobs have become incredibly demanding. We almost feel like, as we talk about in The Unsustainable Truth, the quote from the taxi driver, you know, that the comment that sometimes he feels that he's just kept to be so busy, so he has no time to think just how ridiculous it is. And there is always that sense there. So that is the pressure of the sandwich generation, where you have your parents to look after and you have your children to look after, and you suddenly find yourselves that in order to make ends meet, you can't. And what do you then do? And not only is it finance, it is also a problem, a question about your time and your energy and your emotions. Everything just gets to be stressed. And in the midst of all that, if you now want to go along and say, tell me about climate and how you're preparing, what are you doing to navigate through the challenges? Then that's like, you've got to be joking me. What are you talking about? And I hope that gives some light as to how people feel about climate and the challenges they do. It's not that they do not care. It's a question of how much bandwidth do we have and how can the choices be made so that we can actually choose the right choices in an easier way. So here's Tara.
And the challenges that women face, more women more than men, or men pick up the financial side while women pick up the emotional and physical side. And up until recently, you could say that a woman between 40 and 50 had a high probability that she would be caring for elderly parents while having teenage children. But if you change that and you say when she was 49 when she had her children, so she is not in that situation because her parents have both died in the last few years. So she is only looking after her children. But when her children hit 18, as you just said, they'll be 68. Will they be able to finance them at university? And when they're 78, will their 28-year-old children really be prepared to look after them to the extent that I looked after my parents? Or will they be living the life and too busy?
Yeah, they're not going to, right? I mean, you think about how it works out. You're in your early mid-20s. You probably nowhere near where your parents are.
No.
And then you say they're now in their 70s.
Yeah.
Right, because they would be in their 70s. And if your parents are kind of cool parents, they might come and visit you, and you have a dinner party with your friends or go out with whatever it is, and you got cool parents. But if your parents have any kind of a trouble, it's not, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, and if I think where I was at 27, 28, I was just moving out to Frankfurt. I wouldn't really have wanted to go back every weekend to look after my parents. Didn't mind doing it 20 years later because I was in a very different place in my life. But at 27, when you're just getting started, yeah.
You couldn't afford it. I mean, you couldn't afford it not in terms of the actual money.
No.
But in terms of your career, in terms of your relationship,
And so I may well have had to have, and this is one of the arguments of the sandwich generation as well, I may well have had to turn down the opportunity of going to Germany to live closer to my parents. I've taken a less well-paid job.
Yeah.
So all of which is not great.
How do they see their future ahead? I mean, this must occur to them, right? I mean, because they're not just saving for their children's college. They're saving for their own, kind of care, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we sort of separated that in some ways.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think they think about that.
It's quite a stark thing because in 20 years' time we could be in a, the world is increasingly less able to fulfill. I mean, governments are increasingly less able to fulfill their social contract.
Yep.
And so you're going to be more left on your own, as it were. And we are used to having that because we come from that sort of world, right? And if you like your relatives in India, how do they see it? I guess they don't have this situation.
Well, in terms of they don't have, well, they're a joint family. They're all joint families. So the next generation just live with their parents.
Joint family meaning they live with their parents. Is that what you mean?
So,
not a nucleus family.
No, so my uncle had two sons. The two sons got married. Their wives came and lived in the family house. They've both got one daughter each. They don't want more children, which is also in India. You see the more middle class families only want one or two children. But the wives don't work. So the two wives were on hand to bring up the daughters and look after my uncle and aunt.
Okay. How old are your uncle and aunt?
My uncle died this year and my aunt is in her 70s.
Okay. So they're more deal, because they don't work. Is kind of that. I don't know if you call it still the sandwich generation, but in some sense it is. But in some sense it doesn't have the fact that your time is more taken away.
Although the last time I gave this sandwich generation talk, a woman came up to me at the end and she said, "Have you heard of the Indian sandwich generation?" And I had to admit I hadn't, and she sent me 2 articles which I still need to read. But I think the message there is that, so as part of my talk, I say that the sandwich generation wasn't an issue for my grandmother. She was one of 9 children. So the burden of looking after the parents was split 9 ways. She didn't work, so she didn't have any challenges. And one of her sisters married the boy next door. So there wasn't a geographic problem. In the space of 1 generation, she only had 1 child and not 9 children. So my mother already had more stress than my grandmother. But my grandmother lived with us, so there wasn't the displacement. And the next generation, my mother has 1 child and I live in a different country. And in India, they are slowly beginning to see that as well, because more women are going out to work and more people are moving away from the towns and the villages that they were brought up in. And so the challenge, it's beginning to impact India as well, although a bit later perhaps than it's just beginning to start as an issue in India. And to some extent it's more of an issue because at least in the West we have still a little bit of social security and backups, but in India you're still very much on your own.
What do you talk about in your talk on sandwich generation?
It's a mix of my personal experience, why I think it's important to talk about it, and it's important to talk about it because it's important to realize that it exists and sandwiches need support. And there's some metrics which I need to add because the last time I was recommended that I talk a bit more about numbers. So I think Merrill Lynch did a study which showed that 67% of all women between 40 and 50 or 45 and 55 have been at some time sandwiches.
And why do you think it needs to be talked about? Or what makes you think it needs to be talked about?
So I could take 5 days off each year, sick leave, paid sick leave, not because I was sick, but because my daughter was sick. So you get 5 days off per child, and you have to show the arrêt maladie, the sick note. And what I said is actually my daughter, I was quite lucky. My daughter was pretty fit and healthy. I only used that 1 day in the whole 18 years that I was entitled to use it. What I could really have done with was 5 days off per year for sick parents.
Yeah.
Because that would reduce the amount of time I spent taking it out of my holiday. And one of the issues of being a sandwich is that you get very isolated. You never have time for yourself. You can suffer from depression. And then all the sicknesses which go with isolation and depression. So heart problems, raised blood pressure, this sort of stuff. And so if you at the same time have less opportunity to take holidays because you're spending all your holidays on hospital appointments, you don't ever have time to recharge your batteries. And if companies need to recognize that this exists and that people can take time off to look after their parents, not just their children. And in France now, they have actually passed a law which says that you can take up to you can request 3 months a year unpaid leave over a maximum, I think, of 4 or 5 years in order to look after a sick member of the family. So it doesn't have to be your parents, it could be your partner, for example. And I think that's really important.
Right. But again, that's one of the social costs that is going to be hard to see how we're going to maintain in some sense without some kind of fairly fundamental change in the way that, you know, we view how our work and our businesses and those sort of activities are supposed to provide, right?
So I think companies
You know.
are beginning more and more to see the value of keeping somebody in the workforce, even if it means at a reduced level, because to be brutal about it, if you take your time off because your husband has cancer or your parents are suffering from dementia, there will come a time when they are dead and you can go back to working 5 days a week and will not have lost your knowledge set, which you may have built up over 20 years. And so there is definitely a motivation in the company for keeping these people.
Is this ChatGPT type thing changing that?
Is artificial intelligence changing that? Yes, we do use artificial intelligence more and more. Does that replace people's experience? Not 100%, no, not yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, you know, we have a number of conversations along, and it's really, this is actually really interesting, because a lot of these conversations we've had is all about, you know, young people and the way the future is, right? The reality is, whatever the challenges due to the multifaceted issues that we face, it's going to take a couple of decades more to work its way through, however we work its way through. And the problems that you point out, the issues that, you know, of the sandwich generation, are only going to be exacerbated, I think,
yeah,
in many ways. And most of all is because if you take a look at a country like the UK, or indeed France, is running out of money in that way.
Yes.
And it's going to be interesting to see, you know, for example, if you look at the Dutch with their newly elected right-wing people and so on, and Argentina, you know, which has been a serial defaulter on debt and always running out of money.
Forever, yeah.
Forever. And how those things really work out, because it's the dimension I hadn't kind of fully connected. The weather disruptions and the devastations, you know, so my mum, I go singing with her on a Saturday. I'm going to play this because this is a great thing along, because I just want to, okay? And here it comes.
You keep leaving scooters on the pavement. You keep leaving scooters on the pavement. And bicycles as well, I agree. Bicycles as well, I agree. Really, you don't care about your neighbours. Really, you don't care about your neighbours. Not to prams and those who cannot see. Not to the prams and those who cannot see. This stick was made for waving, and that's just what we'll do. One of these days this stick is gonna wave itself at you.
That's me.
People who ride bikes upon the pavements. People who ride bikes upon the pavement. Are selfish and they're getting in the way. Are selfish and they're getting in the way. While we're at it, councils are not blameless. While we're at it, councils are not blameless. I wish that they'd act on what we say. I wish that they would act on what we say. This stick is made
Oh, that's really good stuff.
So we go and we join this group. It's a hospital down the road and so on. But when the weather is bad, it's really hard. So we don't. And, you know, it's my mum's chance to get out once a week.
Yeah, yeah.
And that disappears, and then everything cascades along, right? Because you're no longer having that contact, and your activity is a little bit less, and all of those things. So as little things like even just a moderate disruption from the weather, it doesn't have to be severe, whatever it is. If you are, you know, as my mum is, you know, in that state, it becomes harder. It makes the sandwich generation harder. Because when you go out and able to go out there with someone else and I'm singing with everyone else, is a much easier thing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Than if you're alone there and you like trying to do whatever it is in that way. And and that increases the cost and the burden as a result.
Absolutely.
Both personally for you know, people in the sandwich generation, and for the state.
Yes.
Especially in kind of like European type states, which pays out a lot for it. You know, maybe in America, I don't really know what the social support system there is. But across Europe, across Western Europe, you know, these things are going to just raise the price.
Yeah.
In that way, right?
Yeah.
And how generous can you be in practice? You know, to say, oh, we will allow you to have those 3 months away over 4 years or whatever. I don't know the answer, but I think that the sense of thinking, I need to work. As you, I mean, you know, you went through that. You know, your boss is kind of like, you know, have I still got a job? I got to be running off doing all these things, right? And you know, am I going to qualify for the same level at the end of this year as the person that doesn't have to be doing this?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think those sort of things are. They're going to hinder the ability for people to. Or I don't know. I mean, how when you give your talk, what do people say? What are their thoughts?
So I've only given it 3 times, and most people say that they identify very much with it, and that they hadn't heard the expression before. There's only one person who'd heard of the expression before.
Yeah. So it's like a unspoken kind of problem because they hadn't heard the expression before. They hadn't, you know, their feelings are not publicly validated.
And it's only when you, and I don't think people think about it until they're in that situation. So one person said, if you'd given that talk a few months ago, I wouldn't really have thought much of it. But actually, this was a Monday, I think I was giving it. And she said, my mother was taken into hospital at the weekend. And all of a sudden, I wake up on a Monday morning, she's in hospital, and I've got to manage mum and work and the kids.
And having been at the hospital with the mother over the weekend, you're absolutely knackered. And that's how you start your week, right? You know, you've gone through that. It's when my dad ended up in the hospital. And we got a call from, I've forgotten who. My dad had was having chemo treatment, and he totally refused to rest, and he got and stay in, so he got some infection. End up collapsing. We end up going along back to where he was, taking him to the hospital. And I'm lucky. I've got great kids who are very helpful and knowledgeable along in those things, but you're completely knackered. Just sort of like that physical and emotional drain.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're sitting there until really late waiting for a discharge to go back home. A lot of those times, that's what it kind of boils down to, right?
Yeah.
And then you really don't have any room for caring about any other matters, really.
So this isn't part of my talk, but what amazed me was what sounds really, really stupid, but after both my parents had died, we got that all out the way. I was sitting on the sofa in my sitting room and I looked out the window and I realized that my curtains, which I had bought some years before and were cream with lots of embroidery on, A, they were no longer cream, they were grey, and B, they had lots of holes in them, where I assumed the cat had clawed holes in it or something. I have no idea, actually. But all the time I was looking after my parents, we would fly back to Heathrow, and I would fly from Paris to Heathrow, meet her at the airport, go back to her home with her, and then fly back to Paris in the evening. And while I was doing all of that, I didn't notice my curtains because I never actually sat on the sofa. And when it was all over that I actually sat on the sofa and looked out the window and thought, shit, I wonder how long they've been grey with full of holes.
Yeah.
And what else in my house is grey and full of holes? It's probably not just the curtains.
No, I'm sure.
Maybe I was a bit grey and full of holes as well.
Well, yeah, and it's. I remember kind of the times where it's with our daughter going through stuff. Part of that sandwich, the other side.
Yeah.
I had so many things in my car. It's like, oh, all right. So there was a wall. Oh, there was another bollard. Oh, and you just don't really notice in some ways because you are so trying to keep up. Or maybe it wasn't trying to keep up. It was really just you had to prioritize in some ways, and something you kind of thought, whatever.
You had bigger bollards.
You just had to prioritize. Yeah. But what about now? I mean, like you say, you've got rid of them. How long does it take for you to go through it to be able to say, actually, I'm going to pay attention again?
Well, I've changed the curtains. I've got new curtains. So yeah, I think it takes a few years, and then you're through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you want to do in that sense? I mean, having been through that, is there like a PTSD type phase? Is there like a never again, I don't want to look at anything like that? Or
I had a deal that I want 10 nappy-free years, i.e. I need 10 years between changing grandma's nappies to changing your children's nappies. So that was a deal. I'm not sure that she's kept to it, or she will keep to it, but and possibly I'm prepared now. It is coming up to 10 years, actually. She's only got another 2 years to go, and then she can have children. That's fair enough.
A couple more years or something, right?
And I suppose I also want to make sure that when she becomes the middle of the sandwich, that she has the best possible setup to do that, so that financially I've taken care of everything, so she doesn't have to worry about the financial side of things, that I've got rid of all the junk in my house, and that I have supported her as much as possible during the time that I can.
Do you think she would take care of you?
Yes, I do.
Then do you think
And I
you
can-
taking care of your mum or anything?
So
Do you think
I
that
took
had
care-
anything to do with it?
Yes and no. My mum took care of my grandma. I took
Yeah.
care of my mum partly because she took care of my grandma, but also because I loved her all the world. And though I say just put me in a really expensive care home with handsome young men in tight trousers, I know that
Yes.
she won't do that. She will want to take care of me. I don't
Right.
flatter myself that she will do what I did for my mother, but I don't particularly want her to in terms of the physical care. If she can pay for someone else to do it, then that's fine with me.
Yeah.
And she will have more control
Yeah.
over it and how it works out than I did, because like you, I had my father to deal with.
Yeah.
So I do
Grumpy
everything
person.
the way I wanted to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and how, I mean, I think this is really interesting thing about the sandwich generation and the challenges we face ahead. You know, this idea of kind of making the transition. So if you look at what's going on in the world of COP, where governments are discussing essentially kind of our future, or our way forward in our future. And the language from the scientists and the activists and all of those things is we must proceed as fast as we can and do all these things and so on. But when you look at it in the context of our individual lives, if it is not possible that everything is done for us in terms of this progression ahead, and I don't think it is possible, then we are going to take very different paces, very different steps.
Yes. Yes.
Both unmuted. Well, what do you think of that, Richard?
Well, it's an incredibly realistic discussion, because it's the kind of day-to-day realities that face so many of our generation.
Yes.
You know, give or take 10 years either side of us, that is the reality that I think a lot of our peers are looking at, and you have had to deal with it. Touch wood, so far I have not had to, because my father's passing was incredibly sudden, and my mom is still in extraordinary nick in many ways. But it does raise the question, you know, of how much can society step in and support on the other side those individuals that are really under pressure. Because I'm under no illusion that publicly funded healthcare system and publicly funded social care systems are under incredible strain given the finances of these governments. And that's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse.
Well, I think that the realization I was having is in some ways related to that is simply, you know, you read the press about climate change, you read all these things about how fast it needs to go and everything. And we had that conversation yesterday with Adam Wasserman about FinPublica and their efforts there to help people who work for businesses. So I think that's better than to say businesses.
Yeah.
Engage with the sustainability. And his point there is, you know, it's people that counts. And in that way, hear this message of the people that counts, we hear. But our lives get to be so full of things, as was mentioned there, you just have to prioritize. It's not that you don't believe in the climate. You just have to prioritize. And I think that's the difficulty. That's where it becomes our whole lifestyle, the whole world that we become. You know, our book, The Unsustainable Truth, is all about how we've created this economic trap for ourselves. so that we just don't have time. We just don't have ways to be able to prioritize other things than just the very immediate.
Yeah. It's in many ways a pretty sad testament of where we are currently, but it's also definitely an unsustainable truth about current existence.
But the thing we hear from Kaka and David earlier and Philip and so on is in those communities where they are not as caught in this web, in this sort of economic web that has become a trap, where they're not as tied and as caught with it. They have the better vision. They are able to see that way forward and go along through, whereas we are very much stuck.
Yes.
And we rely on the governments. We constantly end up and listening to that, you suddenly realize, we've always talked about how the governments aren't going to manage it, and you're just saying about how governments won't have the money. And this is just going to bring it through.
Yep.
So
it will come a crunch time, when you just run out of capacity for each and every individual to be able to cope with those multiple commitments that are being thrown at them. And I'm not quite sure how that will end. My suspicion is that it will not end particularly well. But what that means, I'm not entirely sure, actually.
Well, one thing that I'd like to do this segue into in that sense at the moment is a bit of music. And, a large part of what you're saying and what we need to do is stop ourselves from judging too much.
Yeah.
We can't really tell what's going to happen. We need to make our journey forward. And if we judge too much about it, and very often we judge ourselves too much about it, then we actually hinder ourselves to be able to make those steps. And so this is Halisi Monray. He is a premier Kenyan artist and he music artist, and he's been performing around the world on that sort of climate music in that way. And this is his song "Don't Judge." So here it is. We're just going to listen to that.
We also have an omnipresent God. Since you came into my life, ni mengi nimeponea. I just wanna do you right, ila wengi wananionea. Since you came into my life, ni mengi nimeponea. I just wanna do you right, ila wengi wananionea. Wanasema sijakamilika, ati junatenda dhambi, na ulifa Mesia kwa niaba yangu nafsi. Your grace ikanimulika, sasa ninaenda mbali, yangu wakisimulia, wanamuna tujalali. Wanasema sijakamilika, ati junatenda dhambi, na ulifa Mesia kwa niaba yangu nafsi. Your grace ikanimulika, sasa ninaenda mbali, yangu wakisimulia, wanamuna tujalali. Hata kama nimekosa, please don't judge, please don't judge. Baba patikani, just in charge, yeah, yeah. Me and my father, we are in touch, we are in touch. Yeye maishani, he's in charge, yeah, yeah. Hata kama nimekosa, please don't judge, please don't judge. Baba patikani, just in charge, yeah, yeah. Me and my father, we are in touch, we are in touch. Yeye maishani, he's in charge, yeah, yeah. Umekuwa na mitangu kitambo, hata days nimekuweka kando, nikidhani solo neza fanya mambo, kagundua wewe ndo chambo. Hii dunia baba, wewe ni landlord, we ni mwisho na bado we ndo mwanzo. That's why inabidi niwe humble, mashida ni kupe uhando. Wanasema sijakamilika, ati junatenda dhambi, na ulifa Mesia kwa niaba yangu nafsi. Your grace wakinimulika, sasa ninaenda mbali, yangu wakisimulia, wanamuna tujalali, wanasema sijakamilika, ati junatenda dhambi na ulifa Mesia kwa niaba yangu nafsi. Your grace ikanimulika, sasa ninaenda mbali, yangu wakisimulia, wanamuna tujalali.
So,
Halisi Mundre, yeah. We also have an omnipresent God.
that's what rolling him in the background here. He's multi-talented Kenyan musician. He's up to a lot of things apart from music. And I actually believe he started out as a petroleum engineer before changing his career. So, you know, he's done a lot of stuff and he's quite an interesting character. And David and I managed to catch him the other day as he was swishing around the place where he's living outside Nairobi to have a chat with him about music and life in general. And yeah, this is what he had to say about it all. David's going to show the clip, and yeah, it's mostly David speaking, and I managed to catch him at the tail end as we were all between various interviews. And here he is, Halisi Moray.
In Kenya, and he has been very active in using his music as a way to express how he feels about the environment and about people and the relationship we have with our planet and everything around. And he has been a prominent and very much an invited singer at many events around the world. So we're very privileged to have him here with us today. Halisi Moray, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your beginnings, maybe?
Yeah, my name is Halisi Moray. That is my artistic name. My real name is Maurice Ngaroyamboro. I am an artist from Kenya, a village called Mutare, Murang'a County. I began my musical endeavor in 2015 when I wrote my first song. Then
what was that song? What was your first song?
I really can't remember, but
okay.
I was in high school, and there was this, like, I got like some four lines, and I wrote, and I presented in class, and they were like, they were impressed, but others felt like I was trying too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were surprised. You know, I went to a good school. A fairly good school in Kenya. I passed my primary school level, and I got bursary from my member of parliament. So I went to a school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went to a school where, like, most of the people are from well off. So coming from a village, and I'm trying to sing, especially English.
Yeah.
Kind of like trying too much, but we thank God that I tried.
Well, I'm glad you didn't let that put you off. You know, is it possible to have a look at where you are? You know, your surroundings in the camera. Is that something okay, or maybe outside, see what it looks like, and to give some sense? Oh, that's okay. So you're in busy street in there.
Yeah, I'm in a busy street. I'm actually at the point where Christine's hotel. She has not opened because there was some floods in inside there. So
Oh dear.
we are here with some friends to relocate it a bit. It's here.
Yep.
It's here. So this was the
Oh, this is the hotel.
yeah. No, it was here, but now here flooded. As you can see, it's still
Oh
flooded.
wow. Yeah.
So we have relocated it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that flood from rain, or was that from river
Yeah,
overwhelming?
it's from rain and also the fact that she has not been able to open in a while.
Yeah.
So she has done some few like servicing, like of the roof. She was not
Yes.
prepared for the rain. So
Yes.
yeah, that's why I am. So we move
Okay.
on quickly.
Okay. Yes.
Uh,
Yes. So tell me about how what's influenced your your childhood. You talked about being in the school and so on. Tell us a bit more about what it's like, and how that led you into the song that you wrote. And I know 2015 was a long time ago, but just generally, and how that has motivated you since.
yep. Basically, my journey has not been easy in terms of like trying to rediscover or trying to redirect my gift to things that are worthwhile. Because in high school I used to like songwrite for my team music festival in my native language. After I discovered I can write, to things that are worthwhile. Because in high school I used to like songwrite for my team music festival in my native language. After I discovered I can write, then I finished high school. I went to a fairly good studio here in Kenya, and I used to like be their tea boy because I wanted to
Okay.
learn. And then in the middle of those like tea sessions, like bringing them tea, just making sure the place is tidy. They used to play beats, and I'm like, yo, I have a hook, I have a chorus. Can I try?
Okay.
So I
Okay.
give them chorus, and I thought that maybe they could credit me on stuff, but
Yes.
that was not happening. So
Okay.
I quit music because I didn't have even the money to record.
Yeah.
And I was feeling frustrated because my ideas were being used. So I quit music for like 3 years. And then in my time of quitting music, that's when now I wrote a lot of music that people hear now. I wrote in that period where I had quit because I was like, I need to perfect my craft. So every
Yeah.
day I was recording, I was writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, until early 2019.
Yes.
I met Gratna. She is like global focal point for United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth.
Yes.
She's like, yo, I think if you can sing, you can try to do climate music. And also because of my engagement with the community during COVID, um, I was nominated to be the Muranga County Youth Senator, then the youngest 20. I was nominated to sit in various committees, and finally I was nominated to sit in the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability in Africa,
Yep.
as a creative director. So
Yes.
I that's when now like this stuff of doing climbing music blossomed
Yep.
and became what it is now, because I used to
Yeah.
perform in workshops to like
Yes.
but not recorded music, like choruses like fresh and clean, keep the environment fresh and clean, like choruses. And then they were like, "Yo, I think you can go to the studio and do something." So that's when I went and I released my debut album last year that
Yep.
had several climate songs and also several songs of what I felt. Yeah, in terms of my upbringing that has influenced my music, I have a big brother who
Yeah.
used to write music, so he was quite instrumental in like showing me how to structure songs. I also have another uncle who, okay, my there are two uncles. My late uncle who used to like want to hear my new music, he used to like call me and like, yo, you can I see you, can we
Yeah.
talk about music like 2 hours straight.
Yes.
And there is another uncle of mine who is also a songwriter.
Yes.
But then he quit music because I don't know what happened. But he's a fairly good. He has written various Catholic songs, Kikuyu
Yeah.
Catholic songs that are in Kenya today. But he didn't receive enough like credit because most of the songs he was doing was in a competition for music and for music festival in the Catholic Church. So
Yeah.
when the competition was over, it's just like rewarded like just like 20,000. Then the next thing you hear, the song is written in a book somewhere, and the whole country singing. So I have grown in a musical family,
Yes.
and I'm thankful for that. But I used to be fairly good in academics, so I
Yeah.
thought maybe I'll end up as a lawyer, engineer, doctor.
Yes.
So I thank God I went and did my I went and did my college
Yeah.
diploma in petroleum science, and I realized petroleum science and engineering, and I realized that that's not for me. I was just like trying to prove a point, like trying to be, like an engineer, make my father proud, but it was not something that I was fairly into.
But
So
yeah.
yeah, that's me.
Okay. And just so that people understand, when you say 20,000, that's Kenyan shillings, and that's basically about $100, $130 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see. And tell me then, you it's amazing. You mentioned so many different things. It's not often you hear about that in, when people who are musicians talk about, being the youngest Senate representative, and the community aspects that you're doing. So how do they work together? How do you find the time to do all these things?
I quit the county senate because political reasons. Back in 2022 there was an election, so before then that I had people that I'm working with, and eventually I was told to pick a side, and I was non-political. So I thought maybe it's time I call it quits. So I was just there for like 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So I quit for political reasons. We have quite a hostile member of parliament
Yes.
who views anyone coming up as a threat, and especially I was young, like
Yes.
that
Yes.
means I have longer political life than her,
Yeah.
so she felt I need to be tamed somehow. So instead of like giving
Okay.
her a chance, you can have your way. Maybe our time will come and we'll do our thing.
Well,
In
I'm
terms of
sure. Yeah.
the community, it's been a very beautiful journey. Like
Yeah.
me having a vision to feed the family during COVID, especially in the slum, where there were single ladies who are doing sex working. And when you bring this conversation to the church, they're like, like it's a hot top, it's a hot topic. They're skeptical
Yeah.
about it. So we just formed a group, and we decided, what, we will talk about COVID. We will go and we will fundraise. So we used to go educate the community about COVID, and then we had at that time we had like fundraised among ourselves like 10 shillings each week, so that we could buy raw materials for liquid soap. So when we
Yeah.
educate someone, we leave the liquid soap, and then we have a contribution list. We tell them, yeah, we have given you soap, we have given you information, and if you feel like you also want to give back to the community, there is this family, and
Yes.
so because mostly that time schools were being closed down, and the schools had restocked their food and stuff.
Yes.
So it's easier for them to donate food to us. The Catholic Church donated food to us, and we were able to feed the families for 6 months.
Yes. That's really
And
interesting. So how, tell me more about the community, your involvement there. How big is the community? Is it you mentioned about the Catholic Church? So is it very much just based on one? What's religion like where you are? I also understand from kind of from conversations we've had before, it's just kind of about how where you talk about in terms of the slum, what it is. It has a very wide mix of people. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I think with okay, first of all, the religious aspect is that we don't have a big like dominant church. But it's like the place here is kind of like divided equally. So we have the Catholic Church, we have the Anglican, we have Pentecostals, we have African independent churches, we have various sects of churches. In terms of my community engagement, we have over 300 to 500 families in the slum specifically. Then there it is like it's a deep, it's in a it's, what can I say? We There are a lot of youths there that have a lot of aspirations, but the problem is that no one wants to believe in them, or no one wanted to believe in them when we were having this conversation, first conversation about it, because they were like, you're from Atare, nothing comes good out from there. You guys are just thugs, you're children of prostitutes, such kind of conversation. So it was even hard for someone to believe in their own selves, because the world is already judging. So we are glad that from there we were able to like engage with the community. Oh, so from there, when we had our conversations and we decided, we had various meetings. Oh, sorry. We decided to like do the avocado thing. Yeah.
So when you say the avocado thing, maybe give it sort of from the beginning and tell the story of how it was and what the experience was. And what I also want to do is to go back on your comment about judging, because one of the songs that I really like that from you is the one that you have that says "Please don't judge." So I think maybe we can go on to that as well.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Let me start with the song, and then I start the story again. So that song is called "Please Don't Judge." It's a reminisce. I was thinking, I was in my thoughts, and I was like, why is everyone trying to impose perspectives? Because it's all about perspectives. Why is everyone trying to impose their perspectives on the other person without really trying to look at the common factor, which is truth? So that's why I sang that song. And also it was more of like when I but then there was this story in Kenya called Shakahola. Shakahola is a grave site that was made by a pastor who was luring people and telling them that you sell your belongings, and then you come to me, I take you to heaven. So going to heaven is he preaches to you about fasting. So you fast yourself to death. So
Ooh.
yeah, so around I think 700 people died.
So this is a
2,000
real
people are still
story,
missing
right?
till today.
So you're
Yeah, it's
talking
a
about
real
something that's
story.
real. This is not like a moral tale. This is a real thing.
These are you can even search online.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Shakahola. Yeah, so that prompted me to be like, why is this like this opium of extremism, why is it being assumed that it is something right? You know, why? And when you try and speak up, you're labeled all sorts of names. So it was basically also a song of trying to talk about freedom of thought. So we go to my story about the avocado oil. I can start from where that there has been a problem. There are post-harvest losses of avocado in the farmers that are near the slums was quite high. It's quite high. So we were like, how can we transform this to something that can, can be able to at least showcase that to the community or
So
to the world that.
So harvest losses. You mean kind of you have a harvest of avocado and then you lose a lot of them, of the fruits.
Yeah. Okay, it was man-made. The post-harvest loss was man-made from a point of that there were a lot of brokers that were coming to buy avocado, and so the community, the farmers were like, if we are gonna sell it at 3 shillings, then we'd rather not sell it at all, because someone cannot invest like 2-3 acres to do something, and then they'd rather wait until the everything is okay. So that's what happened. So we had that idea, and then we were like, we were not sure about it at first, and then until we had various community meetings, and we were like, okay, we do not have, even if we find a way to do it, we do not have enough capacity or machinery to manufacture the oil. So what do? We have to add value to it, and that's when Christine and her friend, a little girl, came, and they said they have a recipe from their grandmother, and that's how we started the lip balm. And also Owen was very instrumental from a point of like, he was ready to experiment, and to also, because he has a lot of what is it called? He has a lot of feeling inside him that a lot of people have been able to downplay his skills and ability. So it was also a point of proving himself, and that's how at least we got.
And who's
least
this person who was able to prove himself? Who is this
Owen.
person, or is this Owen? And tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about Owen then.
Owen came to me, and he was like, I think I can do it. I think, and we were like, okay, you just go do your thing, because I remember that time, I don't know what I was engaged in. I think I was recording. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I was quite
So what
busy.
What was he going to do?
So he came and he said, there is this idea. After I remember, it's after you send me the screw, the screw pressed picture.
Yeah.
I remember. So when he came and he told me, I think I can do it, I was like, yeah, you look at this and see if you can replicate the mechanism. So like 3 days later, he came and he said, I think if we find something that is that can propel, then that means it can drive the screw. And I was like, yeah, what do we can go and try and this old fan, and that's how now we got it. And then he vanished. He just vanished. I couldn't trace him for like a week. Then when he appeared with this like prototype, and I called on for a community meeting. We sat down, And we were like, yeah, does anyone here has some scrap metal? At least we can make it a little bit, professional. And we fundraised a little bit, and then we came up with the oil press, and then we did it, and then long rains hit us. Then there were a lot of some few unforeseen challenges, and of course our lead Christine having started her small problems, and also when we were doing it, we had this proposal. We got this proposal for getting animal feeds machinery, and that was because of so that we have this zeal of trying to make an impact. So it went through, but now of course the challenge is here. That's why I'm saying our member of parliament is kind of very toxic. She wants to be involved in everything. She wants to take credit in everything, and eventually, there's this, we have our technical colleges that were very instrumental in the lip balm business, and also in I remember the pyrolysis experiment that we once tried. They're still researching until today. So this was an idea of someone, but the technical college. But when the member of parliament was involved, it just got out of the hands of that guy. It went to the guys of the MP, and then from there, the owner was compelled to sell the land. So we know what happens when we let her in. We have that background story. So we were into negotiations, but now we don't want negotiations. We want to wait until, because the machines are there, we'll wait until the conditions are favorable, and we are hopeful that it's gonna get well. Anyway, also I remember talking about the water pans. You remember?
Yes, we do indeed.
Yeah,
I mean, start again from the beginning. Again, you and I understand this, but for the people listening, they don't have that context. So maybe you have this space where there was an issue about how you can have enough water to grow the vegetables that you needed and you wanted to grow, and so tell it from there.
Oh, it's some noise. Yeah, so the walls were not strong enough, and some of them collapsed. But right now I'm seeing there is one that is still on, by the way.
Morris, great to have you with us.
Yeah, amazing. It's always a pleasure to be to be part of the campaign. It's for you.
Great to have you.
We had a conversation with David, but I think we can recap. I think we can recap. Wait, I almost fell.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'm still walking around because Christine's hotel was submerged to some water, so now we are trying to do some renovations. She's a team member who has been very instrumental in everything that we've been able to do together. So, what would you wish me to tell the people?
I really just want us, to say that what we want to hear from you is your story, because your story is amazing, and I think everyone would love to be able to share your journey, through music. And you're Kenyan, you grew up in Kenya. How and what made you go to music as a career choice? What brought you into music in the first place?
Go into music.
Yeah. What was it that made you think one day, you know, music is what I want to do? That's where I see my future and my career.
It is because I was born in a musical family. My uncle is a songwriter. My big brother is a songwriter, singer, and also I felt a calling. And when I decided, no, it was not deciding, but it was like finding yourself that you're doing something you enjoy and you're doing it over and over again. Then you find out that you're creating beautiful music, and there is an urge to share that with the world. So for me, it was just like a natural process. In terms of climate music, it's something that I had to really research about, and I couldn't find any reference, African reference, and there was no entertainment in this like big meeting. And you know, like music is the easiest form of conveying information. Not everyone wants to read booklets that are released after every meeting. Not everyone has the capacity to use the complex English that are used in these meetings that purportedly are supposed to be making an impact. So that's when I decided to write my own music, encompassing the words in simple form for people to trigger some behavior change in people. So that's how I found myself in climate music, and that's how I found myself in music. And I'm very happy that right now, after I went to various countries performing climate music, there are a lot of like people that have come up. For example, Larry Dwayne, you know, someone that I really spoke to. There is another called Fufena, and I'm glad that I was able to at least create or at least show the way to my African people.
Yeah, you're making some great music, and we're going to hear a clip later here. How much does the whole environment that you're living in, that you grew up in, how much has that affected your music? And has it shaped the way you think about music, the lyrics you write?
100%. Like, you know, like music is a product of inspiration. So, and it's either you get inspired like physically, like where you are, or virtually, or through imagination. So me mostly has been I write what I feel. Those I package my feelings in 3 minute melody. So it's really impacted, and you know, like for example, we have a trench where I live in. We have like poverty, and trying to try and make an impact. Then you have to realize that a lot of things fall on my back, so I have to say them. And also as a leader, it has been amazing. You know, instead of just like doing activism, you know, going against the forces that may be, you pass that information and make the forces dance. So
yeah,
that has been me.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from, and I love the expression "package your emotions." You know, it's very raw and very to the point. A musical piece is really package of emotions at the time you wrote it and recorded it, or performing it. You said you come from a musical family. That was probably very important for you during your upbringing to decide on going into music as a profession effectively. Was there anyone in particular who kind of encouraged you and pushed you along the way and said, Morris, music, that's what you need to do, that's for you?
Yeah, of course. There has been a lot of people that have been instrumental. My producer, Colvin Chita, my my late uncle who passed on, my like just my circle of friends. I've been hanging out with the real ones for a while, and so we have been encouraging each other rather than pulling ourselves down.
That was a pretty raw interview with Halisi Monray, also known as Morris Mboro. I think
Yeah,
he,
it's been, I think their community has really made us realize. I mean, during the time over the past few months, we heard about how the community lost basically the 2-year-old child in the floods. After having cleared the drains and all those things. And I have to say, coming back on this to the hummingbird and Excalibur, your favorite sort of
all the
thing
way
right
to
at
the
the
beginning.
all the way to the
Yeah.
beginning to complete it all. Electrifying oil platform is really just not honest, is it? How much oil do we produce a day?
100 million barrels and change, 101, maybe 102 now. It depends, but we're
Million
over 100
barrels a
million
day,
barrels per day.
right?
Yeah.
That's what 365 days. So that's kind of 100 million barrels. That's basically
3.7 billion
times 10
barrels a
is
year.
billion. So it's like 30 billion. Is that right? 37
It's
billion.
37 billion, not 3.7, 37. A zero here or there.
30,
What does it matter? 37 billion
37
barrels of
billion
oil per
barrels.
year. Yeah.
That's a hell of a lot, right? I mean, 8
Yeah.
billion people. Just think about that divided up by 8. That's
Yeah. So you use
4.5 billion.
4.5 barrels of oil per
4.5
person per year.
4.5 barrels, right?
Yeah. You and I
So
probably use a little bit more, to be perfectly honest, than your average citizen of the world.
I don't know. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, the median rather than the average. I think the average and the median is where it is. And of course, kind of gas production is pretty much increasing. That's I think the latest medium-term gas market report by the IEA is saying that our medium-term pace of increase has been about 1.5% a year over
Yeah.
the past 5 years. And India's coal production increased 11% year on year in November.
Yeah.
So while we go through all these meetings at Dubai talking about oil, gas, and coal and the emission cuts and all of those things, the other side of it, the reality of it, is that the replacement, which Mark Campanani mentioned right at the beginning when
Yeah.
on our first day that we talked about,
Indeed.
it's not yet happening, and he was fairly optimistic that the growth in renewables and the pledge to triple our renewable energy would do the trick.
Mhm.
What do you say?
I think the jury is still out. I think he makes a very compelling case for it. And it is entirely possible that if this was a pure capitalistic world, we would succeed in displacing oil the way he describes it. But when you look at the amount of subsidies that oil, gas, and coal receives every year around the world, and this is, by the way, pretty much all over the world, there are very few countries that actually are not involved in subsidizing the production of fossil fuels. Or if they don't subsidize the production, they certainly subsidize the consumption of them, which at the end means the same thing. Then I'm not sure that he is going to be proven right over the time span that actually matters for us. I am still on the fence on that one.
Well, we got like 20 seconds left, and we just want to say that, we're going to have a conversation after this with a gentleman who may be talking about a novel way by which we can actually reduce the production of oil, gas, and coal and keep them in the ground. So we'll see how that conversation goes, and hopefully we'll bring that to you later on in these 12 days of COP.
Indeed.
Richard.
Come back and follow us tomorrow. 7 o'clock in Tokyo,
Yes.
7 o'clock in Karachi, and this slot, which is 7 o'clock in London. Until then,
thank you very much.
It's been a
pleasure.
Guys.
Remember who tipped over the tipping point, and let's keep the world laughing sustainably.